Okay, wow. I gotta turn this off before I get copyright striked. Ah, the mic. That's actually crazy. I can't believe, genuinely in shock that just happened. Okay. I need my notes too. I'm all discombobulated. Was that within the first minute? Did I just get demonetized? I might have to bleep that out just so I don't get demonetized. All right, Pittsburgh won 28-27. I know I turned it off, but no shot they somehow lose. Also, okay, this is just a mess, but who cares? I got to plug in the computer because who knows if this is going to last. This is what happens when you stream on your computer, boys. Okay, Pittsburgh 28, Washington 27. I won't lie. I picked Washington. Like, I have a pool with my boys that we do our picks in. I picked Washington to win this game. Up until right there, it looked like I had a pretty good choice. So let's go to the notepad. No, actually, let's go off the dome first. Speaking of the dome, my hair is out of control today, so we're going to put a hat on. Oh, wow, that's somehow even worse. All right. People who've never watched my videos before are like, what's going on? All right, 28-27. Let's actually talk about the game. So, are people going to be mad at me if I say that Pittsburgh didn't really win this game? Because, wow, first quarter aside, Pittsburgh did not look good. Okay, on the number one thing on my notes, it says just boring. It was. This was such a boring game. How was this 28? Okay, obviously up until the end, but like a 28-27 game. It's 55 points combined, and I was bored for most of it. Like, I don't know how. Oh, shout out my mom. Mom said few. I don't know how that was like such a boring game. I mean, well, there was no offense. Okay, yeah, we put up 28 points with one of the worst offensive performances I have seen in so long. Like, I genuinely don't know how we put up 28 points. We had the muffed punt, obviously, but like, Najee did not have that great of a game. I don't even think he cracked 60 yards. I think Jalen had 56. Like, I guess as a team they had over 100, but and like passing wise, I think Russ was under 200. I think he was actually under like 175. So just weird game offensively, but we came away with the win. But the reason that I said a couple seconds ago that Pittsburgh didn't win this game, I think Washington just kind of lost it. I mean, I guess you could say that for like both sides because like Pittsburgh was about to score, and then the fumble happened on the goal line, and so I don't know. There was just a lot. It was just a very boring game for how high. Like this was, you guys have to understand. This is the difference between this season and last season. Last season, if I saw Pittsburgh put up 28 points, I would be running laps right now. And now I'm like, we only put up 28 points, and it was pretty boring. Like, what is that difference? But yeah, I mean, for an offense that's 8th in the league right now in rushing, it didn't feel like a very good game or a really efficient game running wise. So I really can't just think about anything off the top of my head because yeah, it wasn't like a memorable game. I don't think I'm gonna look back on this game throughout the season, like after the season ends, and be like, yeah, that Washington game, a pretty good game. Looking at the notes, I'm gonna talk about that towards the end. Yeah, bad running day. Just like Najee had a touchdown, but I think it's just a bad running back day. Like there wasn't. Not that they were bad, but just like they weren't as involved in the passing game. We're also now using a 3-headed monster. And like, listen, I would criticize it if it didn't work, but Cordell Patterson does have juice. And speaking of juice, we're all in agreement that whenever Jalen, and I'm not going to shit on Najee because Najee has been really, really, really good this year. I'd argue this has been one of his best years. I'm just going to talk about one player versus another. We're all in agreement that when Jalen's running the ball, he just automatically, you see there's more juice, right? And like, I know that Najee's not going to have that juice because he's also, 2 Jalen Warrens, both size and like weight. So like, you're not going to get that, but man, it's so nice just to be, but then you also do get the same thing kind of with Cordell Patterson, but like Jalen Warren especially, and it wasn't as prominent last week, but I think, or not last week, 2 weeks ago, but I think with the bye week and how he's been able to recover from the injury, like he just shoots a gap, and it's so nice to see. And that fourth quarter drive right before he fumbled, which even Gene Sarator said he basically they should have blown it dead, and I think Jalen Warren was expecting to be blown dead, and that's why the fumble happened. But, up until that point, he was running really, really hard, and they probably were going to bring him in again. Obviously, it was because of the Najee injury. They're probably going to bring him in again if that fumble doesn't happen and he gets the touchdown. Also, speaking of touchdowns real quick, how do I have Jaden Daniels in fantasy, and the Commanders put up they put up 3 touchdowns, and he doesn't have one of them? Unbelievable. Shout out Pittsburgh's defense for not letting Jaden Daniels dominate this game, but I would have liked it because I need him for fantasy. But yeah, so running back wise, it's weird to see. I mean, even like an older Cordell Patterson have more juice than Najee, and I think it just depends week to week. I think Najee doesn't have the juice when he hits a hole. It's funny, Najee, he must. What's that ability in Madden? It's like stamina or like recoup, I think is what it's called, where you get stamina back in the middle of a play. Najee must have that, because usually Najee, when he gets like a burst, it's in the second level of the field. But I would love it if it was earlier, but it's just not his running style. What else do we want to talk about? Jaden rushing contained. Yeah, no, we, again, as a Jaden fantasy owner, would have loved him to run all over this team. But as a Pittsburgh fan, I think he had 1 positive rushing play, maybe 2. But I don't think he cracked 15 rushing yards. So Pittsburgh was able to contain that. Now, I think Pittsburgh is also kind of in the minority in most leagues because we get to play Lamar Jackson twice a year, which is funny because, even the Bengals and the Browns? No, Bengals and the Ravens are the teams that have played Washington so far. They couldn't really contain Jaden Daniels' rushing, but Pittsburgh's always just been really good to adjust towards that. So that was a huge positive, and I won't lie, as a fan, going into this game, I thought that was going to be one of the weaker spots for Pittsburgh, but I think that was the strongest, was their ability to negate anything Jaden could do with his legs. I'm going to save that for a little bit later. No huddle. Last game, 2 weeks ago, I can't say last week, 2 weeks ago, we were utilizing the no huddle, especially earlier into the game, and it was working really well. And I was like, I really hope that going into the bye week, they see how well that was working against a good Giants defense, even though they just lost to Carolina. But I was hoping that they would go into the bye week and be like, okay, this is working, we're going to build off of it. I don't think I saw a single series where we were no huddle here. And that's weird because up-tempo was working really, really well. Again, the Giants' strength on their defense is their pass rush. And so they're up front. And we were negating that. And I would argue pre-Marshawn Lattimore acquisition, because he didn't play in this game, that is the Commanders' main strength on defense. So they've been getting better in the secondary. But so I thought we would see more no huddle, but we didn't see any. So I would like... Who do we play next week? Is that the Ravens next week? Can we please bring that back? What else do we got? I said I'm going to say if we lost, one of my talking points, I'm still going to talk about it, was going to be, this is what happens when you're not able to force turnovers with this Pittsburgh defense. And I think that point still stands, but obviously we won, so people will be like, oh, we didn't lose. But I still think this game came down to a literal inch and a defensive lineman hopping offsides because he's a rookie. And that game was decided by that, as opposed to the last couple of weeks, well, not the Giants game, but the weeks before that, or most of our wins this season, where it's been like, I've been able to set this up and start recording with 3 minutes left in the game. But we're not able to force any turnovers, and I know that there was the muffed punt, but I wouldn't count that as a forced turnover. That was just a mental error and a mental mistake by the Commanders and Olamide Zaccheaus. But Pittsburgh, no fumbles, no interceptions, not even almost interceptions. You could count the tip up, but it wasn't like it hit anyone in the hands. And sacks, it was just a quiet day for our defense, which that one thing, and I wrote this down, was when we scored, and this is the first time in a while I felt this way. I think there was a minute 51 left on the clock. This was the first time in a long time where I was not confident in our defense, because our defense, we won the game, but I can argue that, and Jaden Daniels didn't have a great game fantasy-wise or statistically-wise or with his legs, but I think it's pretty fair to say that this was not a good showing for Pittsburgh's defense. The secondary, I have so many notes about, first of all, Joey Porter. You know how they talk about, insert name here, legacy game? The opposite of that was today for Joey Porter. He was doing PIs, he was holding, he was really grabby, and that's his playing style. And you're going to get caught occasionally with that, but you hope that they evolve from that. And that was one thing. Okay, yeah, Russ's post-game dance was really funny when they hopped offside. That's what the notification was. But, Joey Porter's a physical corner, but I was hoping he would be able to kind of learn and be taught out of that while still using. I mean, it's going to happen when that's just your style. It's going to feed into it naturally because that's what's natural to you. But I would like to see less grabbiness from him, and he was a huge reason why the Commanders were able to get down the field because of penalties. And then also on the same side, just the secondary in general today, whether it was leaving and this is more just defense, I guess, anything besides the front seven, but leaving the middle of the field. Oh my God, the middle of the field. The Commanders were feasting on that today. I'm surprised Zach Ertz didn't have 20 targets in this game because the middle of the field was completely empty for most of this game. And Pittsburgh was playing a lot of cover 3, which is funny because it's a definite change up to the cover 2 we've been seeing with the super soft zones. And I think that they were playing a cover 3 with like still the curl like the curl zones on the outer boundaries, but they weren't as shallow as normal, so that's kind of nice. But then what happened is because you're having the cover 2, you're having one of your linebackers have to drop up the field, leaving one there, and there's just way too much field to cover for one person. So you're gonna, when you pull someone this way, congratulate, look at all this space. You got Zach Ertz coming here, cool, he's gonna get the catch. So Pittsburgh, I don't know why Pittsburgh doesn't run more man. Like, genuinely, if you're the best pass rusher in the league, and I would say the best pass rushing duo, but we'll talk about Alex in a little bit, but you've the best pass rusher in the league and one of the best defensive tackles in Cameron Hayward. Why aren't you running more man? Do you not trust your team? I would even argue that Joey Porter is better in man than in zone, and especially with a quarterback on the back end like Minkah Fitzpatrick is. I know, yeah, he's a safety. We know that, but I have to say that for the people that don't understand the fact that I do know football. I know the name of the channel, but like that's what they call like essentially the mic. And even though Patrick Queen is the mic linebacker of this team, that is what Minkah serves as, and that is literally just the quarterback of the defense. So I just have to clarify. But when you have someone on the back end that can see the entirety of the field like Minkah can, and also another safety in Deshaun Elliott, who's as versatile whether you want to put him into zone if you're playing cover 2, or if you want to drop him into man coverage, you want to play cover 1 with Minkah on the back, then cool, you have that versatility. So I don't know why Pittsburgh isn't doing that. Also, Pittsburgh just isn't blitzing. I talked about this in not last week, but the week before's video. I don't know why Pittsburgh isn't blitzing more. But I mean, I guess when you're winning games, why would you? Don't fix what's not broken. Don't fix what's not broken. So we'll see. Speaking of our pass rush, Alex went out with like that last series for Washington with the ankle injury. I had a heart attack because I thought he was grabbing his knee at first, and I thought he blew his ACL. Now, I'm not saying that the ankle is still not serious. We will see what happens. Oh, James Conner. James Conner. He just got me a touchdown in fantasy. Let's go. James Conner. Yeah, y'all thought this was a Jalen Warren jersey? Nah, it's my boy. But I was talking about, Alex Highsmith. Yes, it was not an ACL and MCL, but it's his ankle, and I'm really hoping it's just a low ankle sprain and misses maybe a week. Honestly, I'd rather him miss 1 week than be like kind of okay and play next week and possibly re-aggravate it, especially if the possibility that Nick Herbie comes back, and now that we traded for Preston Smith, which I didn't love. It was fine. I didn't love the trade for Preston Smith. Now I'm fine with it because what's his strength? It's the run game. And what's Nick Herbig's weakness compared to Alex Highsmith? It's the run game. So that's kind of nice to have that depth, but hopefully Alex is okay because he had a really good game. He had a sack taken off a couple times. He had some really good pressures that were taken off because of penalties or because of down defense shots that got completed. The front seven did okay for the most part. It just wasn't as much pressure as we're used to or we're likened to seeing with Pittsburgh. But the front seven had an average day. The secondary was just really getting torched. I mean, Terry McLaurin on a slant play, just the middle of the field. I mean, Zach Ertz too. It's just the Washington Commanders' weapons are not up there when it comes to the NFL. I mean, they were in the market for a receiver as well. I mean, their starting tight end right now is 34, 35, 36 years old. And we now have the rest of the season, we have to play every divisional opponent twice. So that means a Deontay Johnson, a Mark Andrews, a Zay Flowers, a Jamar Chase, a T. Higgins, if he's ever alive and healthy, a Mike Gesicki, who's been having a good season, a David Njoku, who's been pretty good this season, And then that's just within our division. Then you have to play Philadelphia, who has A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, and Devonta Smith. Not even talking about Saquon Barkley. We're just talking receiving weapons here. And then you've got the Chiefs, obviously, with DeAndre Hopkins, who's looking better and better for them. And then Travis Kelce as well as their, one of the biggest just historical names for the Chiefs that has success. And it looks like he's getting better and better throughout the season. So, like, this is arguably going to be the easiest weapon game that Pittsburgh had for the rest of the season. And they better be able to adjust. So I'm curious what's going to happen. I do need to know. My phone is all the way over there. Bro, can we – everything's fine. I just want to double check who Pittsburgh plays next week, because I think it's Baltimore. And if it is, I'm also curious where this game is. Schedule. Yep. Oh, it's in Pittsburgh. That sucks. I'd rather this game be in Baltimore because we play Baltimore as our third to last game of the season, and I would prefer that game be in Pittsburgh. But damn, we have to play Philly on the road and then the Ravens on the road. So home game, home game. At least we get to play the Browns in Cleveland first. And then we have to play Cincinnati in Cincinnati. Oh, the Browns game's a Thursday night game too. Okay. So, yeah. I haven't even talked about, like, the bigger weapons here. Quarter 3, I will say this. Our third quarter, piss poor on both sides. Defense, really just overall bad. Offense aside from, like, again, we put up 28 points, and this felt like a bad offensive game. I mean, Russell Wilson didn't have 200 passing yards. Neither of our running backs cracked 75 rushing yards. George Pickens had a good game. We'll talk about George in a little bit. But, like, again, maybe I'm just getting spoiled somehow, but as someone who would, like, for the last 4 years has craved offense, when I would get it, you will see me fulfilled. And I don't think it was a very fulfilling game from the offense this week. Speaking of the offense, we're throwing jump balls to Calvin Austin. I love that we're getting Calvin Austin involved. You just traded for Mike Williams and you have George Pickens on the team, and we're throwing jump balls down the field to 5'9" Calvin Austin? Interesting choice there. Going into the fourth quarter, too, Russ only had 9 completions, 9 for 21, so less than 50% going into the fourth quarter. I think he ended the game at 50%. I think he ended at, like, 14 for 28 or 15 for 30, I think. But still, I guess 3 touchdowns. So, like, Russell, he's putting up points. I can complain about the yardage all I want, but he put up 3 touchdowns. So I can't complain there. And then Najee had the rushing touchdown. I was doing the math. I was like, where did the 4th touchdown? I forgot Najee had the rushing touchdown. I talked about Jalen's juice versus Najee's. Oh, can we stop running the ball horizontally with Najee? If I'm talking about not having juice, why are we running horizontal pitch plays? The fact that we're still doing pitch plays on this day and age in 2024, in this point in the season, the fact that we're doing that after we've seen one of them work. One had a touchdown, Connor. Cool. 1 out of 1,000. If I'm at the casino and 1 out of 1,000 times something's positive happened, I'm not going to sit there for another 2,000 times to hope that the second one comes up. I'm not going to do that. So can we, if you're going to do a horizontal pitch play or a horizontal run play of any kind, can you give the ball to Jalen or even Cordero? Because Najee needs to just run between the tackles. And also we did that. We ran that play on a 1st and 15. What the fuck are we doing? We were down at that point. All right, I could sit there and rant about that for too long, so we're going to go here. Oh, my genuine reaction to the Mike Williams touchdown, because it was 3rd and 9, I think. And Russell was under pressure, and it looked like he just threw the ball away. Like, there's a receiver in the area, I'm going to throw it up. And I went from genuinely audibly, what the fuck? Oh, my bad. No, it was, what the fuck? Oh, you're joking. My bad. Like, I was like, we just wasted a drive. We're going to have to go for it here on 4th down. And then Mike Williams came down with it, and cool. I'm not going to judge Mike Williams too, like, if at all, on this game, because I think he only played, like, 12% of the snaps, which I'm not going to also like be like, oh, Pittsburgh should have played him more. They got him at the beginning of this season. He's going to need time to like mesh, get the playbook somewhat down, because you can't just learn it in a week. So maybe next week we'll get him more involved. But I do like the involvement of Calvin Austin. I think that's pretty great. Like, if we're not going to go out and trade for a big name receiver, why not make one of our own guys a big name receiver? It's not like it's impossible to have a fourth or a fifth or sixth or seventh round pick be a star receiver in this league. We've seen it plenty of times. We've seen it with Antonio Brown. So, and I think Calvin Austin, he's known as a speed guy, and primarily like speed only guys at the wide receiver position usually don't have that much success in the league. But I think Calvin Austin's route running ability is really, really good. So why not utilize that? So I like that we're getting him involved. Joey Hansey, talked about that. 35 total yards in the second quarter is crazy. That's actually such an insane thing that we had in the second quarter. I'm going to talk about that later. I hate draws on 3rd and long. We had a running back draw play for Jaylen Warren on like 3rd and 15. And why? Like, literally the next play was the fake punt. But, like, it's not like you're planning. That's not in the game plan. That's not in the script. Okay, we're gonna run the ball on 3rd and 15 because it's going to be a draw, and we're going to do shit because that's what we're expecting. So then we can set up the fake punt. Why are you running? Like, what? I know it's early-ish into the game. Was that the second quarter or the end of the first? Just at least try to get some of it back. Give the ball to your playmaker. See if they can run the ball. Like, get some yardage off it. I'm not saying you have to throw the ball 15 yards to get it, but maybe throw it, 10 and see if the player can get 5 off of it. But, yeah, well, that's the one thing that hasn't changed from Randy Fingner to Matt Canada to Arthur Smith now, which is running the ball on 3rd and forever. So that must be a Tomlin thing that he likes to do. And like a conservatory, I like to play very conservatively. And then we had the fake punt, which should have been completed. And, if it had, I would have walked in here and been like, Pittsburgh stays having the best special teams in the league, which we still do have the best special teams in the league, but it just doesn't look as good today. I mean, it looks fine because we did have the recovery on the muffed punt, but, like, can you imagine we had the muffed punt recovery? And it was actually 2 muffed punts, but the muffed punt recovery as well as a 4th down punt pass completion, that would have been pretty dope. Also, James Pierre, rough game, like, really rough. He had on that final drive for the Commanders, he did have a pass breakup. I think it'd be fair to argue that was a pass interference because he made contact with the player before the ball got there. But it was just a bad game for James Pierre overall from dropping that and also having to fill in for Dante Jackson. Cam Sutton also got back from his suspension, which I'm going to address the suspension real quick. He was suspended because of domestic violence. Cam Sutton, you're a garbage can of a human being. I don't give a fuck if you're on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't give a fuck if you're on my team. I will not root for you, the individual. You held your girlfriend at the time out of a 3-story balcony at I believe it was a hotel in Florida. You're a garbage can of a human being. I can't believe you even got signed to the football team. I think the fact that Pittsburgh brought you in is a disgrace to the organization based on the shit that you did. And that's all that's all I'm going to entertain you with, unless from the rest of your time with Pittsburgh, if you make a play, I'll talk about it because that's relative to here. But you are a garbage can of a person, and that is that. But, yeah, so now we have him, and then we also have Corey Trice coming back, I believe, next week. So there is depth back at the corner now, which a lot of people were thinking that Corey was going to come for – pause. Weird place for me to pause there. But pause for Beanie Bishop's position. But Beanie is more of a slot and a nickel cornerback, which is more what Cam Sutton plays. So Corey now, if Dante Jackson is going to have like some of these lingering hamstring injuries, which I'm not saying it's going to linger throughout the entire season, but like there's multiple games now where Dante's left the game in the 3rd or 4th quarter due to a hamstring injury. So now if we have Corey Trice coming back, I'm a little more comfortable with that because that's a 6'3" guy who's a good speed corner as well, so he can keep up with wide receivers, and then we just need to see how fresh his legs are and how good his route containing abilities are. But I'd rather have him filling in than James Pierre, who had a pretty rough day today. Okay. The last 2 things I'm going to talk about, we're going to talk about George Pickens, and we're going to talk about Russell Wilson. Let's talk about George Pickens first. I think George Pickens is a top 10 talent in the league. I think it'd be even fairer, and there's a genuine argument you could say that his talent is top 5 in the league. The shit that he is doing is insane. That touchdown catch was unreal. I don't think people understand how hard that was to go from running here. Like, even catching over your shoulder is super difficult, but to then see, he looked this way for the ball and then had to completely contort his body this way to catch it. And it wasn't even here. It was completely outstretched. Body control is absolutely insane. That is, there are very few wide receivers that can do that. And between that and, like, the infamous catch from last year against Cleveland where he, like, caught it and everything. Like, he has the talent. And that's the thing is he's not just good at spectacular catches. His route running is really, really good. He has speed. He's physical. So I think it's fair to say that he is a top 10. There is a real argument to make a top 5 talent in the league. But I have an issue with George Pickens. Cool. Hey, you know what? In fantasy, he got me, 6 for 93 and a touchdown? Awesome. That's great. He helped my Steelers win today. That's awesome. I think he is so much fun to watch. But if I'm going to talk negatively about other players on this team, like how I've talked about Russell Wilson. Japes is back to being a Chargers fan. So that's a good sign for football. When Japes is actually paying attention to the NFL, that's a good sign. But if I'm willing to talk negatively about, the character of other players, I have to be able to do it for players that even bring me a lot of joy when I'm watching them on the field. And George Pickens has a huge attitude problem. I'm going to say that right now. It's funny, some of the shit he does, like last week when he had that, or 2 weeks ago, when he had that, RKO play. That was funny. I don't think there was anything negative there. He looked like he was jumping out of the way of somebody coming underneath him. But you also, at the same time, there's the flip side of the coin where, the game that we lost, where he grabbed the face mask and shoved him down. Today, there were multiple instances in this game where he was, on the interception and arm punt that Russell Wilson threw, he just randomly tackled and wrestled a dude down. And there were multiple times in this game too where he was just getting into it with the defenders. And yeah, he can be super fun to watch, but I don't like his attitude. And call me a fucking boomer, call me an old head, I don't care. That is the type of dude that in college would be a dick to me, scrawny little me, in my opinion. I really hope that I'm wrong here, but I don't like the way that reflects. And I know that the team loves him and that's awesome. But there seems to genuinely be a character issue there, and I'm not cool with that. Obviously, it's not as bad as, like the rants I just went on with Cam Sutton. There's nothing there. It's just, the personality, I can't vibe with that. I'll root for him, and he's also young. I think he's 23 years old, or he's 24 years old, so he can definitely grow, especially with someone like Mike Tomlin. But I can't look at this and be like, that's a green flag. That's a red flag. This is second. This is third year. This is third year in the league. And, because Chase Claypool announced him. This is his third year. This is third year in the league. And one of the reasons he fell in the draft, well, there were two. One was because of his injury history, but the other one was because of his attitude problem. When you go to Georgia, apparently, it's just in the water at Georgia, apparently. But, the attitude problem is a real thing. And when you see this with, other receivers, I'm forgetting his name, but the receiver for Cincinnati who got sat last week when they were trying to scheme a game for him, but he just completely missed. He just missed and showed team meetings on Saturdays, and he showed up to the stadium, in pajamas. And he also fell. It's bugging me that his name is slipping me right now. But he also fell in the draft because of character issues, and when it reflects, it reflects. And yeah, like I said, George Pickens is super fun to watch, and I hope he gets better. But as just a person, I can't look at that and be like, cool. It makes me feel kind of like, why am I rooting for a dude who seems like he might be a dick, So I'm hoping that he's able to mature and grow, but I also feel like I've been saying that for 3 years. Now, lastly, Russell Wilson, the quarterback of our team. Threw 3 touchdowns. That's great. Didn't have 200 yards. Who cares? He got us 3 touchdowns. And, that's something that Pittsburgh Steelers fans have been asking from their quarterback for the last 4 years, basically. Now, one thing that was present, and again, if Pittsburgh lost this game, I would have talked about it a little bit more and probably would have been the main thing I led with. But something that was a little more noticeable in this game, and it was a reputation that Russell Wilson created for himself and some concerns that Steelers fans had when we brought him in, which is Russell has one of the highest rates of creating his own, creating sacks for himself, which is basically just holding on the ball too long or navigating the pocket in a way that allows the defenders to close in on him, and he sacks himself essentially. And that was pretty visible today. I think he only got sacked 3 times, maybe only 2. But there were multiple times where he had to just throw the ball away because he was either holding it for too long or he wasn't navigating the pocket. Now, it's not Kenny Pickett spin out situation, which Kenny's playing today. And the Pitt fan and the optimist in me, when we drafted him, it really hopes he just balls out and proves that it was Pittsburgh letting him down. Also, I think it'd be really funny if Kenny played when we play in Philly this year. That'd be pretty funny and pretty fun. I'd watch the shit out of that game. I'd already watch it, but I'd be like, into that game. But, it wasn't like his spin bad, but you do see, like, this was the first game with Russ as a Steeler where I was like, oh, yeah, that is definitely a Russ trait. But that's the thing. This is the first game. Out of 3 games Russell has played, if 1 out of 3, I'm only seeing those, I'm not going to judge it too harshly, but it is definitely something I just want to point awareness to. But overall, I can't be too disappointed with Russell in this game. I mean, he looks like a leader. It looks like, yeah, he's willing to learn and operate. And you know what? I was really hard on him the last couple of years. And maybe having a piece of shit human being as a head coach like he had with Sean Payton. And no, I don't feel bad about that. You guys remember the fucking headhunting controversy with him, and players don't like him. And he's just, honestly, in my opinion, one of the most overrated head coaches in the league. But that's a conversation for another time. Maybe, being around that situation sucks ass and just makes you kind of feel isolated, and maybe you isolate yourself a little bit. So it is nice to see the team rallying around Russell, and also seeing, like, the commentators talked about it. Ian Eagle, I think it was, saying that he was talking with Russ, and Russ said that he's willing to, like, learn. And if you're 36 years old, you're a Super Bowl winner, a lot of people aren't going to want to learn at that point. They're like, I've been here, I've done that. But if he's the one to learn and change, then I am too. So I really like what I'm seeing from Russ. I hope it keeps up. But also the worst part about this win is the fact that this is going to probably be the easiest game for the rest of the year. Oh, Pittsburgh plays Cleveland twice. It's a divisional game. You got to throw records out at that point. I would not be surprised if Pittsburgh drops one of those games against Cleveland, genuinely. But yeah, I mean, we literally only have the rest of the year, every single divisional opponent twice, Philly and Kansas City, and that's going to be really rough. Pittsburgh is 7-2 right now. Do not be surprised if they finish this season 10-7 or 9-8. That's a real thing that could happen. And yeah, if that does happen, I will set this camera up and I will look defeated as fuck and I will rant for a long ass time. But without that emotions in my head right now, without that situation, I can look ahead and say this is a rough ass schedule. So if that happens, you know what, that's just a typical Pittsburgh thing. And if Pittsburgh wins 11 games, then I think, in my opinion, that's a win for Pittsburgh to leave the season with 11 wins. If we get more than that, there should be I'll still complain because that's who I am as a fan. But there shouldn't be genuine complaints at that point. So yeah, don't be surprised. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but if it happens, don't be like, what happened? We were 7-2. I'm old enough to remember when we were 11-0 and finished with 12 wins. So I'm curious your guys' thoughts. Also, we just crossed 12.5K. Is been insane. I think I should probably make a video addressing the growth pretty soon. This isn't the time to do that, though. But I appreciate you guys. I got some skits to go film. I got tomorrow off, so I'm going to film there, too. And, yeah, I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this game or any other ones. I might make a video tomorrow talking about some of the other games because there were some pretty impactful games that happened today that I'd like to talk about. But we'll see. I made that video essay last week. Had a lot of fun with that. But I'm going to do those as sporadically as possible because those are a little more time-consuming. But I do enjoy making those. So, other than that, I'm curious your guys' thoughts. Someone just commented, Mike Williams. What did you comment? Mike Williams just won the Steelers the game, and this was on the NFL trade. Okay, this is what I will say. On my NFL trade video where I gave grades for the trades, I gave Pittsburgh an F, not because of the trade. If I was grading that trade, I'd probably give it a C because I thought a 5th-round pick was a little too much. I thought Pittsburgh would get him for a 6th or 7th. I gave Pittsburgh an F because they set up their fans, and Pittsburgh themselves didn't do this, but just the ongoing saga of it did. Well, we went from Brandon Ayuk to Devontae Adams to maybe Cooper Kupp if the Rams lose to I'm hearing rumors that DK, and there's no way he was actually available, but I'm hearing rumors that DK has been in trade talks, to about to get Christian Kirk, but then he breaks his collarbone, to just ending up with Michael Williams. So I gave it an F because of that trajectory we went on. If I was grading the individual trade, I'd probably give it like a C or a C+. But anyways, appreciate all the love and support from you guys. I'm going to get this video out ASAP. Go watch the post-game press conferences and get on with my day. So thank you guys. Appreciate it. And you guys know how we end these.